It is Monday night, October 27th, 2025. I'm meteorologist Brian Shields. Powerful Hurricane Melissa. The overall news today is not better. Two things that stand out to me. It is slower. We talked about this in the last video. That kind of backs up the time frame. And it is stronger. Winds right now is sitting at 175 miles per hour. That's about 280 kilometers an hour. This is a powerful Category 5 hurricane and not seeing any signs of weakening. In this white shading, very, very strong and dangerous winds, especially around the eye wall. And you can see that how it is inching closer. It is now showing the turn. I mentioned earlier that it would take a while to kind of take up until this point tonight. It looks to be doing some sort of a little bit of a loop. I do think the track is a little bit more to the west, which I'll show you. Again, I'll highlight all of the changes. And as I've been mentioning, there's going to be changes. And from this point forward, we continue to take it step by step. But this is going to be an extremely powerful hurricane moving right into Jamaica. It's not just going to eventually move north. It is actually going to curl back a little bit into the western zones of Jamaica. That means a little bit better in our eastern sections. I'll show you the difference west versus east with this. As we go out in time, I'll show you the winds, the wind field. But at this point, we need to be sheltering in place. Whatever you need to do in certain parishes especially, we need to do it to stay safe. I'm looking at Hanover, Westmoreland, St. James, and St. Elizabeth. If you are in those parishes, you want to be in your safe spot. It's going to be a long haul, slowly getting worse tonight, then a whole lot worse by the morning, in through the first half of tomorrow, lasting into the early afternoon on our Tuesday. Days ago, I mentioned a long duration event. It would be a big kind of wait and see. Where's the storm? When is it going to come? Now we're starting to see it making its move. And it's going to lip back toward Jamaica. We have a front coming back toward the southeast U.S. That's why it's kind of stalled out. It is barely moving. Winds right now 175, as I mentioned. It is moving to the northwest. It's kind of doing a loop from what I'm seeing, but the overall motion northwest at 4 kilometers an hour. That is just about 2 miles per hour. So it's basically stalled out. When they stall out, when they slow down, that is a sign it is feeling something. It's not just marching off to the west anymore like we've seen, kind of holding in place, looping around, and then that front is continuing to move in, gets caught up into that, moves across Jamaica as a powerful hurricane, and a powerful hurricane right into eastern Cuba. We'll highlight that as we go down the road. The pressure, 909 millibars, 909 millibars. That is super strong. This is one of the strongest storms, hurricanes in the Atlantic Basin in the month of October on record. The Atlantic Basin, the Atlantic Gulf, and the Caribbean. That's how strong this is. So in this video, we're going to go step by step in case this is the last time I see you. I'll put out additional videos. You could subscribe so you could get those notifications first when I put out a new video. So thank you for subscribing so you could get the new information. But we may get cut off rather soon. We're getting cut off in spots as far as power goes, things like that, communication. So again, kind of last chance. One thing I like about the slower aspect is that I could sneak in some more information for you and you could get some fresh information. So thank you. If you're in Jamaica or if you have friends in Jamaica, you can kind of get this link to before the power goes out. I really appreciate that. Just spreading the word one more time. That is what you can do as we just go forward with this system. By tonight, it moves closer, right? Southwestern coast, as I mentioned, Westmoreland Parish, for example, we're going to see some higher impacts starting to move in late tonight. A slower system. Again, it's kind of looping, almost stalling, and then it's going to be working in tomorrow morning through the day now. Again, those are the changes. As I've been mentioning, we'd have those, and then eventually by tomorrow night into Wednesday over the southern coast, southeastern coast, right here of Cuba. It'll weaken a little bit, but it still could be a major hurricane. It is so very strong that it's going to take some time to weaken even as it passes over West Jamaica as it moves toward Cuba. And still a hurricane getting very close to Long Island. That's why I mentioned in Long Island, we're in action mode. I mentioned that several videos ago. It looks to move kind of over or very close to Crooked Island. That could bring some of the tropical storm impacts back toward the Turks and Caicos. Meanwhile, we continue with some spots of flooding in parts of Haiti with some higher rain totals. So taking a look at this, this is the core of this, right? This is the high concern in the core of this, around the eye wall. That's where the destructive winds are. That is life-threatening. I can't can't stress this enough. I need you to be safe. Do whatever you need to do to be safe if you're in these zones. You can see how this will be working very close to Westmoreland Parish. This is 7 in the morning, not making landfall yet. It looks like it'll make landfall around 10 in the morning. Again, kind of backing up in time. It has slowed down. But in this, these are the very dangerous major hurricane winds. That's why I mentioned those 4 parishes. Now the center may be right over here in extreme western zones. We'll see. Maybe it's a little bit closer to Black River, but high impacts, life-threatening impacts. Again, Hanover, Westmoreland, St. James, and St. Elizabeth. I promised you I would get very specific. That's what I'm doing. And then you see the center of this by tomorrow afternoon, still near Falmouth, still big hurricane conditions in our western zones. I'll highlight our eastern zones in just a second. We've got everyone covered. All of us are going to get impacts across Jamaica. Then by 3 o'clock tomorrow, again, slower. We still have hurricane force winds, St. Anne, Falmouth, back through Montego Bay, right along the north coast. Still by 3 o'clock tomorrow. By 3 o'clock tomorrow. Since it is slower, the time frame is backed up. That is one of the changes. And there are going to be more changes, but I appreciate you getting the word out because this is where it stands right now and power is about to go out. So thank you for sharing the information. There'll be more changes. These things, especially because it is so big, they wobble, they get a little bit off course for a time, they get back on course, and that does change the winds in certain locations. And that's what I'm going to be highlighting in this video. Let me show you this first as we go forward. Again, here's the core of this. This is here's the eye of this. This is 2 in the morning. Heavier weather starting to move in across southwestern sections. This is the very destructive core, right? We're going to get some hurricane to tropical storm impacts, of course, in our eastern sections. I'll highlight that. But this core here, this is life-threatening stuff. You need to be in shelter. You need to be in place. Your shelter may be your home, but you need to shelter in place. Stay where you are. This is going to get very dangerous. This is 2 in the morning, onshore flow. So we start to get that surge. Again, we get that counterclockwise flow right around the eye of this sucker, and that brings in that abnormal push of water. I'll show you that as well in just a second. Here is the eye of this. This is the very dangerous and destructive. And you've been with me for years. You don't often hear me use the word destructive. A destructive part of this right in through here. Weaker structures could have complete failure. Heavy roof damage right in this sector here. So you need to think about what happens if my roof goes off, having a mattress nearby, although that means water's coming in, we know that, but we need to stay safe. You want to have your shoes nearby, your shoes on, especially through the day tomorrow in case windows blow out. That is how intense this system is. Doors could simply blow in with this in this sector. Then you see by 10 in the morning, starting to make landfall. That's when the eye, the center of the eye, starts to move on land. Here is that destructive core right here. Again, this end, we'll see it wobbles. It's not going to move on a straight line. So maybe even if the eye is sitting right over here, just off toward the west, you still have, again, the eye wall. That is the worst part of it. Or maybe it's a little bit closer toward, say, as you get toward Spanish Town, most likely. But it could nudge a little bit closer toward Kingston. Just not seeing that at this point. So as we work our way into 1 o'clock, here's the eye of this. Because it is so powerful, even as it moves across the mountains, the weakening is not enough. It'll help out a little bit down the road for our friends to the north, but there's the flow around it. And then the kicker, here we are in Falmouth, you get that backside flow back through Montego Bay with really almost a secondary surge out of this, but by 6 o'clock, getting out of here. So I want to stress, it has gotten stronger. That news is worse. 175 miles per hour. We're talking the likes of a Maria, a Dorian. That's how strong this is. Some of the strongest storms we've seen. Gilbert in the kind of a history, recorded history of what we've had in the Atlantic. That's why we need to prepare. It is making its turn, and it is going to give us high impacts, especially West Jamaica. I want to stress again, Hanover, Westmoreland, St. James, St. Elizabeth. Do everything you can, throw everything you got at this storm. Once the winds pick up, you know it's coming. You're sheltering in place with your family, and you're just trying to be safe through this. But there's going to be some very destructive winds with this, and then eventually pushing off. So specifically breaking this down, I've reduced some of the winds tonight because it is slower, right? That makes sense. It is still sitting down here. This thing is not moving. It is just kind of haunting us at this point, staying down here. But the winds, they are going to start to pick up. Black River, Treasure Beach, for example, swinging all the way back toward the west. We'll start to get some near hurricane gust. We're already seeing that. We've already had some power outages. That's what we're going to have. Meanwhile, as this moves closer, late tonight with that onshore flow in some of the bands of rain, we'll get some strong tropical storm conditions in our eastern sections, but this is the core. Then as we work our way into tomorrow, really early tomorrow through the first half of the tomorrow, even into early afternoon, this is the worst weather, and I've adjusted these maps. One thing I did in the last video was raise these numbers, and again, change is likely. I'll be fine-tuning this. I want you to get the best information, right, for safety. That's why I do this channel, so that's why I'm tweaking everything best I can behind the scenes, working nonstop. Now with that, I've lowered some of the winds as we work our way into our eastern section. Strong tropical storm to a kind of category 1 type of hurricane conditions. Watching that, Port Antonio back through Kingston, swinging up toward the north, St. Anne's Bay, swinging down toward Milk River, right on the edge of some of the heaviest stuff. We'll see how it shakes. Again, this system, it could be a little bit more over here, or it could take a wobble and put it a little bit more over here. There's really no way to know that, because you've seen it. It's making a little bit of a loop now. Nobody knew it was going to do that, but it does these things. They wobble around as especially they start to change course because of the front. So this is how it stands. These are destructive winds as they move in. Now these are the sustained winds, the potential of these being the sustained winds. With that, on top of it, we're going to have some of the higher gusts. So in this zone here, that's why I mentioned those 4 parishes of extremely high concern in and around that. If your town, city is in those locations right here in between this line, in this line,
the past life.